Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Blair Embry. I'm the communications manager for Prison Yoga Project, and we are really excited today to have Vanessa Nechi Gutierrez as our guest. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Nechi is a 500-hour certified yoga teacher. She joined PYP in 2019, teaching trauma-informed yoga classes for adults at the MDC, which is the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City. Vanessa's work is focused on reconnecting the mind, body, and soul through yoga. Her study of generational trauma and the impacts of trauma informs her commitment to anti-violence work through a social justice lens. Thank you so much for being here. And I will lead us through a centering opportunity. This is an invitation. And if anyone is listening to this recording at a later time or you're driving, I recommend pausing and doing this at another point in time. So I'm actually going to start in a tall seated position, if that feels good for you. You're welcome to keep your eyes open or closed. And I'm going to lead us through a body scan. And before we start, maybe we can bring our focus onto the natural rhythm of our breath. A few more moments here. And a body scan is an opportunity for us to focus on different parts or different sections of our body that end in a holistic understanding and a felt sense of our body. I often like to start with the feet. Maybe your feet are touching the ground, and that's a great place to inform feeling or touch. So bringing your awareness to your feet. If I mention something that you don't have a felt sense or a feeling about, no problem. A body scan is an opportunity to observe without judgment. And this blends beautifully with yogic practice. Creating a felt sense of our feet in union with the ground. Bringing this awareness up our shins, through our calves, meeting in our knees. All awareness in the knees. Allowing that awareness to flood up the front of the thighs, the back of the thighs, the whole thighs. That awareness is resting in our hips, circling and surrounding our hips. In your mind's eye, locate the tailbone. And like a ladder, allow your awareness to climb up your spine. The low back, the mid back, the upper back. The awareness is resting on your shoulders. Allowing your attention to flow down your arms, pooling in your elbows, extending through your lower arms, reaching your wrists, your palms, all fingers and fingertips. Allowing your awareness to meet at the base of your neck and slowly crawl up to the crown, your forehead, your eyelids, your cheeks, your nose, your chin, your face, your ears, the whole skull. Bring the awareness to your upper body, the awareness to your lower body, now whole body awareness. Whole body awareness. Allow this to seep in for another 5 breaths on your own time. Slowly bringing yourself back into the room when it feels good and right for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love body scans.
I love it, and one of the things I love it is one of the things I had learned is the yawning. With that yawning come is significant of your body releasing tension. And when I teach my classes and we do centering and I see people yawning and I always say just embrace it. And the bigger the better.
I love it. Yeah, it's an indicator that people are feeling good.
Yeah, it's an indicator. Yeah, it's like you're releasing, and I always say just wash animals, when they get into stress
Mm,
situations, the body usually tend to shake, and then after the shake, it comes a big yawning, you know, and that's the natural ways of them releasing the tension that was holding into the body. So,
thank you. Nechi, what's your first memory of yoga?
first memory of yoga, it actually came as an adult. The very, very first one, I remember I was working in a southern restaurant, and the teacher decided they had a friend to come and teach a yoga class. And I tried it, and I was like, and that was back, I was 20, I think I was like 24. And I never really heard about yoga in my life ever. Even I was in New York already, like 3 years, 3 years in New York. I never really heard about yoga growing up. So it was my first time. It's like, oh, this is like the most fun thing. You know what I mean? And that's it. You know what I mean? Because when I start talking to my family, I do come from a background where I was taught that yoga was you was serving the devil, like you worshiping, the wrong person. So that and it was the way they explained it was like I'm so scared. I kind of step away from it. And then the second time then that I decided for actually really try it, it was I remember going through some rough path and I had a Groupon to this yoga studio in my neighborhood. And a person said, let's go do it. I'm like, sure. And I was so blessed that I have found this yoga studio. It's closed now, but the name is Yoga People. And what a wonderful community. I felt so welcome. And everyone is so kind then so I completely fall in love with that.
Mm.
And then I started practicing with most of the teachers in that studio. So were Jivamuti teachers. So my first yoga, it was in the Jivamuti style, and the which is always starts with this beautiful like teaching, and lesson, and then you go to practice of meditation and a lot of singing too. So that's how it started for me with that with that community and with the Jivamuti practice.
Mm. That's a really devotional practice, right?
Yeah. But it's also very physical too.
Mm.
So it moves pretty fast, but it also creates a lot of awareness with the body. So it's like as you practice this, your teacher constantly remind you, to pay attention to where you are and what you're doing. And a lot of times they will read something or tell you a story in the class or space in that story. And so it's always really, really, really fun. But in that is when I learned to realize how shattered my mind was. You know what I mean? And that's I think one of the things that I love about that practice is that I start connecting with connecting. It was a lot of disconnection then, and I started connecting and realized how harmful I was being with myself. And that practice has started teaching me to be compassionate to myself. And it was not about the competition, but what I love about the community is that when they see I don't know my left from right, and sometimes I would struggle to understand something. They would look at me like, look at me, and it was this really beautiful. And I had never felt that ever again after I practiced there for about 2 years, 3 years, and after that they closed. And I never felt that community in any studio. That when I practiced there, it was a beautiful community, and it was a beautiful practice. But that's how my journey started. Yeah, in that studio.
Where are you from?
Puerto Rico. I am from the tiny island of Puerto Rico. And I'm actually even more interesting when people think I'm like from a tiny little small town in the north side of the island, and places that people know is probably Rincon and Aguadilla, Mayagüez, who's in that part. But yeah, I'm in a little colony, and you're just right next door to Rincon, which is a sort of very very well known surf town.
Oh, that's awesome. What was your childhood like?
For my childhood, in many ways, it was awesome, and in many ways, it was really hard. Growing up in a beach town is fun. The freedom that you get to like run around all day and disappear. But I guess that was back in the 1970s, so there was not that much. It was a lot more freedom back then. But it was a little rough. I grew up with a very abusive father. Not only physically abusive, but he also it was mentally abusive. So I think the mental abuse it was pretty awful. But I had a wonderful mother. So I always tell people it's pretty amazing because I grew up with two completely different how you say that in English, positive people. I had a mother that they could not love me more and give me so much more love because I don't think it was possible. That she was the just pure love, you know what I mean? And then I have this father where he was like completely disconnected with himself to the point that he don't realize the pain that he was causing to this family.
Mm.
So I grew up in a very interesting way because since a very, very young, I experienced what pure love and kindness means, but it also understanding what mental illness can cause and the pain that can cause to people. And since very, very young, I was curious about it. And it's something that came to me right now. It's I remember when after my dad would say, well, it was a beating and people would see me with bruises and stuff like that. And they would say, he's evil, he's that. And from a very young age, I remember telling people, I think he's just sick. I think he's not well. You know what I mean? And because I remember most of the time the next day he would look at me and he had no idea what he did,
Mm.
you know. And I know it's always that was the first time the curiosity of understanding for me why people behave some ways they and why people sometimes cause pain to other people. And I always see it it created a lot of curiosity for me. So that curiosity started really, really, but it was really hard. You know, I was talking to you about yesterday. One of the hardest things in growing up in that way it is um, I remember being a really, my mom, which by the way, very quick, she got early in stage Alzheimer's. So by the time I was 16 and she was 46, and the diagnosis with
Mm.
the disease was really advanced. But it also, I was born a little bit of a gift of being a little like stubborn and headstrong and I always stand up for what was right. So for many years at that point, by the time I was 15, 16, I always protected my mother. And I also have the strength. And when my dad was trying to do something, I would stop him and say, you can't do this and you can't do that. And of course, the beating went to me. Um, but I remember being as a kid, being this very live kid, always talking, always very happy. And one of the hardest, most painful things that to this day that's been hard to overcome is growing up. And he used to say to me, Vanessa, you need to do yourself a favor and don't talk because first you make me look bad. And second, people think you're stupid, and then you could see myself like slowly start shutting down, and I think part of my trauma is kind of begin in that way. But at the same time, it was very confusing time to be so young and not understanding that. You know what I mean? So that was my childhood. And then it was, it was having the ocean, it was very healing.
Mm.
Having remember I only live half a mile from the beach. So when I was able to walk myself to the beach, I would go to the beach and just sit down with the ocean and be with the ocean and just allow myself to be, and whatever pain I was going through, it's almost like I could let it go by just sitting down in the ocean and get the strength. It's like it represents so much strength to me. And and so it helped me. It was like my way of, I guess meditating without meditating, you know what I mean? And so in something that I didn't know that kept me alive, it was meditating without have idea I was meditating. You know what I mean? Like getting myself into soft places and remembering, being able to be still and just start breathing and put myself in a happy place.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I remember many times going to bed and just hold into that beautiful image, and that image brought so much peace into my life. So yeah.
I'm sorry that happened. And that sounds like so much responsibility for you to hold as well as a young person
Hmm.
to have that mindset or that understanding of, oh, my parent is really sick, and having to explain or justify who he is. And then this opposition that you're talking about as well is that you have this archetype mother figure who passed when you were quite young. And that's such a young age to be diagnosed with early Alzheimer's as well. And then you have your father figure. How do you feel like yoga and meditation have helped to heal some of those wounds?
Well, I think the most beautiful part is because for the many years I had such a negative image about myself and my self-worth. Like literally those words, even it is very interesting. This is the beauty of the practice. Even to going back in my image, thinking about it, and I can feel the emotion coming up. I can feel the emotion in this moment coming up and rising. And the beauty is that yoga helped me with this. And this is sometimes what I teach my students. That we will heal. And but the beauty of the healing is that when these things happen, you start noticing and then you have your breath. All you can do is just to breathe. So yoga helped me to, when I was practice, seeing how negative I was and listen to the teachers say, you are here where your body allows you to do today. And that's when I felt, in many ways, I feel even life has been very hard. I feel very blessed because they had put in my life amazing teachers. It is what I do now because they in many ways saved my life. For their teaching, and is in the beauty of the yoga is when it is something very special about the movements. And I think what it is it requires so much concentration. You know what I mean? To know where you place your body, where you ease, and where you move, and that flow is very healing. You know what I mean? Because I do believe yoga is not only the asana practice, but yoga. I talk to me. Yoga is not. It is any movement that you can do. They help you to connect with yourself. You know what I mean? Through your mind and to your heart. And if that means a walk where you can feel your step, then and you're aware of your breath and you're aware where you are, you're practicing yoga. But the practice itself of the asana, which is the movement, one of the links of yoga, it have a beauty in itself and a very healing modality that work beautiful for me.
Thank you. And to continue expanding on that, when you were sharing a little bit of your story, I see a lot of crossover and similarity to the people that we serve inside. High ACE scores. So ACE scores are adverse childhood experiences, very similar to what you experienced. And as we know that trauma, whether it's big T or little t in our childhood, directly affects and impacts the rest of our life. What do you feel contributed to you not continuing the violence?
My mother. I do have to say, if there's nothing that inspired my life the most, it was my mother. And in those AA scores, I'm really high. Like my score, it's top there. And another test that I did while I was doing the prison yoga project training, which back then it was in person, is also was the one we did this thing where it was talk about privilege. They ask you a question, take a step forward, and then one back. And that's actually was very impactful. It was really hard for me. I remember the end crying because while I thought I was extremely privileged, I ended up pretty much touching the wall. I was 1 inch from touching the wall, and that hit me really hard. But what are my great inspiration not to end the violence is that woman. That woman, my mother, that got it. I don't think it's possible to have more pure love like she did to, not to me, but to everyone who was around her. She was an art teacher, and one of the greatest memories I have to her, and one of my greatest inspiration, is when she had what the school considered the bad students, the trouble students. I clearly remember to say, she's like, they're not bad, they just need more love. They just, and even think about it, I can become emotional, but it was that beauty that I had to tell people. I had never, the short time that she was in my life, I had never saw her saying anything negative about anyone. but she almost looked at them with, even through my father, she looked at him with so much compassion that in my head growing up, being a teenager and trying to grow up and trying to understand life, it would be like, why? Why? I don't get it. But it is amazing what a gift to now doing this work, say like, wow, what a gift I have in life. What a gift, and I think she's definitely by far the greatest, the greatest inspiration, like I'm so blessed to have her as a mother.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that you followed in the same path of compassion and serving others.
And I think that's what it is. And what I tell people, I saw what pain did. I saw how hard pain feels in your heart. And I feel what a love feels in the heart. And I choose love. I choose love because it felt a lot better. And so I choose love over things. And I tell people I got so much love that all I want to do is love everyone. You know what I mean? And and I remember a long time ago, I found this church community that was really amazing. And I, for the first time, I decided I'm gonna go baptized because I really love these people. I love this church, you know what I mean? And I never really grew up. I grew up believing in God and having faith, but we never really kind of went to church or anything. But I remember telling my pastor back then, Dr. Paul Smith, that I say, all I want to do is I just wish I can love and hug everyone. And he looked at me like, well, do you think that's possible? I'm like, I don't know. But I think through yoga, I found that. I think through yoga, I found a way to give what my mother gave me to those ones who are suffering, to those ones that had society, which it also happens to me when society make you believe you're not good enough. You know what I mean? To those ones that they, for some reason, we judge without really knowing their stories of why they act the way they are. We're very quick to judge them. But to those ones, I think yoga allowed me to give that love that, I tell people I'm full of love and there's no better way for me to give it back than through my practice. They help me so much to heal.
And I'm hearing the theme of our time together is resilience. How do you feel like yoga and meditation practice have helped fuel your resilience?
The resilience is, it is the beauty of that is that connection, that self-compassion, you know what I mean? And to understand that, that compassion to understand that every day is different, you know what I mean? And I love when in yoga I tell you that, the life has ups and downs, and through the practice of yoga, you just manage to, instead of getting up and down, yoga help you to almost maintain a little bit of, and it is the awareness is the beautiful of aware where the emotion comes, and one of the greatest things I learned is the grounded. So one of my favorite poses is mountain pose. You know what I mean? Because the idea I like to talk about, about feeling the support of the earth gave you by grounding your feet. And then a lot of times I talk about it, just feel you, I usually I tell them, lift your toes and then slowly ground your feet into the floor. And then start feeling that energy start rising up as you grounding your feet down into the floor. Allow yourself the energy calm. We keep feeling your feet grounding to the right, and then start going up and start getting taller. And place your hands, and it's a beautiful thing. And I ask them, can you feel the strength of the mountain within you? And I think it's that, and the curiosity. I love why, and I think that's the to look at your body with curiosity and compassion, and then that's one of the greatest. I think I talk to my student, like I told them, as we go, we practice here. This is 1 day a week, but the way you can keep practicing this yoga is I invite you to ask you around to take time through the day and to take a moment just to look around you and see what is happening. Open that curiosity that happens, check with your body, how you feeling. You know what I mean? and it talk about like the walking meditation in the middle of the city. Yeah. So can you take a moment as you're walking and running errands? Can you then pay the attention of how you place your feet, the the heels into the ground and slowly to the ball of the feet. And can you notice that? And can you notice then how where's the breath going? And as you're doing this, can you take a look around and see what is happening and what is happening inside of your body? And for me, that's yoga in itself. That's meditation at the same time. Because meditation, we a lot of people have this misconception of the meditation is sitting down still, cross-legged, and then and just closing your eyes and not think. And when I was doing my yoga training, my teacher said that's concentration. That's not meditation, but it's concentration. Which, if when you have trauma, is something really hard to do. So I talk about the beauty of the true meditation is when you're completely aware of what is happening within you, when you're capable to notice and you check with your breath and you make that connection, then you're practicing yoga, then you practice meditation. You know what I mean? Something sometimes, so the movement, the connection. Sometimes I notice that some still to this day, I practice what I did as a kid is when the emotions arise in a way, I allow myself, I love rocking, so somatics has been very important to me, not only yoga, but something that's been very, very healing in my life has been somatics. So I talk to my students about somatics, and I'm now sorely wishing away of somatic and acupressure is the jitsu practice, and it's about holding your fingers, and do you know that one, Blair?
No.
You don't. Okay, so I'll explain in a minute. But it's just that for me. So yoga is that movement, and what I like to do to people is like you don't have to be here. Like, I wish everyone could practice at least 3 days a week because I think a lot of healing comes from practicing. But when that's not available, this is the techniques you can do to practice in your own time when you're feeling safe, and you know what I mean, and it's into the daily curiosity of awareness, and then just be when you feel safe.
And I think that curiosity lends to non-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I think the curiosity gives spaciousness too, between like thought and behavior or thought and action.
Mm-hmm.
So having the mindset of curiosity, do you think that also helped build your confidence? You had spoken about earlier that you just had such a negative self-image. So how did curiosity shift that self-image for you?
I think because so then the self-compassion, it was one of the hardest things to overcome, to not to overcome, to learn, actually. Wanted to have compassion to myself, to say, to acknowledge, self-compassion is a lot of work, and to be kind and to notice when you got, and then be kind to yourself. How to explain this one? It's almost like you talk to your shadow when that negativity comes. You know what I mean? And that's, and you ask, and I talk a lot about when something comes arise that doesn't feel so great within your body. When negativity comes, can you look at it without judgment, but ask them what they need? What is it you need? And don't think, but just allow the answers to come to you. And I see that answer might come in the form of a word or an image. And can you talk to it? Treat it as a little child is hurt or wounded, and be kind to it. Just be kind. And I told them this is not going to happen overnight, but it's like everything is going to take practice. So every time you notice, and that's why I constantly talk about curiosity with no judgment, but just acknowledge what is happening, and you keep practicing, and then but mostly it was learn to be compassionate to myself, to understand that what happened to me, it didn't define who I am, and as a mantra that I told myself that came to me into listening is trying to do this. I did struggle a lot speaking up. And I remember when I was in therapy, I always, when my therapist do the scan and tell me what you feel it, I always remember having really hard time in this part of my body. For me, speaking up what I believe and say, and it was really hard. And then to have and start that compassion, these start opening up and they start releasing the tension. You know what I mean? So, but I remember, when I started doing this and thinking that who I am to teach, or like I'm not capable to do, because some of I do have learning disability, that sometimes I try to say something and words just don't come out of me. It's like, so I'm gonna go and so I remember for the longest time, every time that the negativity come, I will tell myself, my passions are greater than my fears. My passions are greater than my fears. And I repeat that mantra until that voice start letting go away. And it's something I do with class now. I kind of, when that happens to me, instead of shutting down, in my class we laugh a lot. And I talk about my vulnerabilities, and one of the vulnerabilities is that I say sometimes I forget words, or sometimes, I do, and then I tell my students, so I might need your help. We're a team here. I am not here. I'm here to give. I have a knowledge. I had studied this, but we're a team. As when you heal, I heal, and for me, actually, you inspire me in the way to keep doing this and being here. And so I always say we are here together. So when I forget a word, I'm gonna need your help. So sometimes I'll be like teaching something like push down, like ankle. Thank you. So we do. I believe laughter is one of the most beautiful way of healing. But it requires so much compassion to yourself to be able then to look those things that we consider they're not the way that the society tell you it should be, or the way you should be, like, then when you let that go and go like, okay, you got my back, yeah, thank you, but just to be light to yourself, when you're not function as society want you to function, or you're not what society tell you should be, but to honor who you are as you created, it is really, really beautiful. And I always say that everything I went through, it was beautiful in itself, because it showed me compassion. It showed me pure love. It showed me to love everyone for the way they are.
And I think this really lends to our trauma-informed framework in a couple ways. One of the pieces that we meet everyone with positive regard, every person that we meet.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I hear that you are immediately dispelling the hierarchy of that the teacher comes in and knows more, right? And the teacher is the one that's dispelling the information. And so it really allows this equality to happen in space, which is part of our trauma-informed modality. So the people that we facilitate with are our participants, and we're a facilitator. And I love that humor and laughter is also part of your class, because I think for a lot of people that are incarcerated, that might be the hour of their day where their life feels light or joyful. So I just think that that's another amazing piece of the kind of programming that we offer.
I do, most like, I think it's a privilege to do this work. It is an honor to do this. I mean, it is like, it's just like, I say, I feel it right here. It is a privilege to do this. It's a privilege to be able to go there and serve these people that the society somehow had pull away and label it in a way without knowing anything about it. And what I feel like, it's a privilege. I learned so much from them. They give me, I tell people, when I walk into the studio, when I walk into the prison, it's like I could have been having a bad day, and I get there and I see, my people, and it's almost like everything disappears. It's this beautiful light that comes in, and then I don't know if they're gratitude or what it is, but they light up my life. They inspire me every day to keep learning about what trauma does to the body, You know what I mean? What and it kid me to educate people. I'm constantly talking to everyone. They tell me, what do you do? Oh, this is what I do, and this is so I go really, but I'm constantly people go like, oh wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't know about this trauma, you know what I mean? But mostly to create awareness in our society. We need to start taking care of each other and be more compassionate. And I tell people, the more compassion you learn to be to yourself, the more compassion you're going to have to others.
Mm.
you know and then I tell people, be kind to yourself.
You facilitate a lot of places, which is amazing. I'll list them off. So you facilitate at Metropolitan Detention Center and you teach the women population there.
Yeah, and I'm just, yeah.
And then you're at Exodus Reentry Center, and
Mhm.
they also partner with a women's shelter that uses their program. So it sounds like you facilitate for a lot of people there as well.
Yeah.
And then there's an amazing program called KAVI, and that stands for Kings Against Violence Initiative, and that's in Brooklyn, and they
Mhm.
facilitate at schools.
Yeah, they facilitated in a high school, and then they're talk about it, also trying to bring the trauma informed into King's Hospital. Yeah, so
Wow.
because it's a hospital that encounter a lot of the people that go there is like wound shots or stabbing, so it's a pretty high level of stress hospital. Yeah. Which
That's
is once again, so sorry. It's once again one of the beautiful the things, and the beautiful things that what we do is how we expanding, because sometimes we think that we have the prison that is within these walls, but then we don't think about the prisons that we live in as a society. And you know what I mean, and sometimes how much harder is to where we know our foundation, our grounding is our feet, but it also our home. And if our home is not safe, it's really hard to find healing. And how beautiful for me is, and it's kind of where when my dream of facilitating this practice now has spanned, like how I can bring this more to society, because we need it everywhere. We need not only when people come out of prison to then to have to come to a house that is all highly traumatized and everybody's disconnected. How much beautiful it is if we can help the family and the society to learn how to support each other and self ground themselves, and find the healing that we need as a society.
Mm, I agree. Yoga and mindfulness. I would love to see it everywhere.
Yeah, I feel like it needs to start in pre-K and then be in every work, and that's one of the things I might do in the fall if it's permitted. And when I mention it to the teachers, they love it. I say, how about that instead of having one class that we maybe get students, maybe not, I come maybe once a month or twice a month, and I help the teachers to have, with adding to their schedule, but adding like a quick centering exercises that are not only going to serve them, but they're going to serve the students. Because here, especially here in New York City, it is violence is growing. Is feels. I tell people, for the very first time in my life, I feel unsafe in New York City.
Wow.
And we already have, they're teenagers, they already don't get sleep, they already come from homes that probably have a lot of trauma. And how beautiful is to start a day or start every class with just a few minutes of centering and observe what happened. And the teachers look at me like, yes, we're going to talk to. So we'll see, cross fingers. They're going to talk to the directors and see if they approve for me to come and give something for the teachers to offer their students.
It would be incredible. I feel like it was the Dalai Lama. He said, if you want world peace, teach every sixth grader meditation or mindfulness, right? Something like that, right? Like
I
start young.
Yeah, you
So it's,
start.
so it's integrated.
Exactly. I have, so I babysit twice a week, and I have this 2.5-year-old now. But when she was 6 months, I started teaching um Peter Levine Wu exercises. It was funny because I would do it with my therapist, and I didn't know exactly why we were doing it until I read about it. And it's the idea that when you inhale, natural, and then you inhale, and then you go ooh until the air is out. It helps to bring oxygen to the whole body, and it helps to then So usually in my yoga classes, instead of om, I ended up with a vu. But I teach this technique to a 6-month-old baby. So when she would get angry, to this day, I say, Missy, show me patience. And she go, ooh.
It's so
So,
sweet.
so she knows, and she's 2.5, and she knows, it doesn't always work, but for the most part, I say, show me patience. And she knows that she have to go, woo.
I was teaching an outdoor yoga class that I called Whole Family Yoga at the LA Arboretum when I was living in California. And I would incorporate nature. We're at an arboretum, we're outside, and to kind of get the kids' attention. And I taught bee breath, which is the humming.
Oh yeah, I love that. I teach that one. Yeah.
And so I watched this little girl, and she's sitting there with her legs crossed, and she has her fingers on her face, and she's humming. And then she opened her eyes, and they were just so big. She was like, that was amazing. And I had spoken with her mom, and she kept doing it. And so I feel like when we teach kids, they have an affinity. There's a naturalness to meditation and movement that they really love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's one of the beauty about teaching in the population that we teach too, is how the willingness of healing they're inside of them, and the gratitude when I actually practice that, and they all look at me like, that was so cool. You know what I mean? And so it is what one of the things that I say that is the most fascinating is the willing to learn what could help them to be more at peace, and it's pretty awesome. Something that now you mentioned, the nature is something I always use a lot as a way of healing. And before I started doing it before yoga came along. It's something I'd done from very young. Is when I was feeling that emotion arise, I would take a piece of nature. And I used to say this to myself. Then I tell people, you should try this. It works so good. I said, just if you're feeling, just take something. Take a leaf, a tree, a flower, and just look at it. And that's it. Just breathe and start looking all the details in that part of nature you're looking at it. And look how fascinating it is. And just breathe as you're doing it. And then you realize after a while, it's like whatever it was in here, you start realizing it's sucked in it. So that is something that I always had used since I was really, really young. And like I said, I don't know, I part of me, I guess it feels weird to say it, but I feel like I was born with this gift to be able to understand some things and to be able to get myself to heal myself. And I always say, when people say, oh, I'm sorry you have to go through what I have to go through, I'm actually extremely grateful for the father that I have and the mother I have, because then I always wanted to do something to contribute to the world, to change the world in a way. And I don't think I was able to do that if I didn't understand pain the way that I have to understand. I have to go through the pain that I would need to understand what it truly means. You know what I mean? And I would not understand love if I didn't have the love that I got in my life. So I think in some ways, deep in my heart and my soul, I knew I wanted to do something in the life, had to show me the path through it and trust that path and going through it. So instead of judging them, why this has happened to me, and I always say this to my student, because this is what I did, is what I'm learning from this. What is life teaching me about this, and how I can grow from this, and so and for me, it's been a great healing, and once again, in the practice, and when you practice yoga, this become more alive. You know what I mean? When you start then connecting to your body, to the practice, and know that today it might be good, and then tomorrow it doesn't feel so good. No, you understand that compassion through your body is,
I had a thought that I was going to keep building on. It flew away.
Oh no.
But
Yeah.
I think it's the time to
Okay.
transition,
Mhm.
and we can invite our community to ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
once again, the black bar at the bottom of the Zoom screen, there's a box that says Q&A, and you can drop any questions that you have in there. If it's easier for you, you can also drop it in the chat. Sometimes it's just a little more organized in the list in the Q&A. We'll give it a minute. People muster up the bravery to get the questions in. What practice or pose do you feel that people have been responding to lately? Sometimes I feel like it changes, but
It changed around. I think, it's funny to say, really, I think my favorite, like I said before, is like mountain pose, because I think about, I joke about it. So if you go to a yoga studio, people say mountain pose and people just stand there. But if you understand the power of the pose, you know what I mean? And it goes with every part of every pose in yoga. You really understand the pose, how to work, and you listen what is happening, you know what I mean? And like we always say, it's always invitational, so I always tell my students, I invite you. If this, which is very important, and I didn't mention in here, I get a little nervous, so sometimes I forget exactly what I'm going to say. But as we know, the class is always invitational, so I always tell my students, I invite you to if it's you're able and your body allows you today, then to do this. And I think students like when we have a little bit of fun. So of course they always love tree. And I always talk about the bending tree, you know what I mean? Like see if bending, just if it's bend, it's just the wind, you know what I mean? Another one that that I know is the resilience with them, which I love, is a little bit of the combination of the Qigong. It's like when you shake your body, we move around and invite the energy to move. They seems to be very resilient, they seems to love that one, and invite the free movements to see and to touch, and to tap, and something that I do in class, it is I love to explain my poses and why they help you. You know what I mean? So a lot of times they say, if you, as we bend, as we bend and fall forward, and we bring our heart below our belly button, that helps to calm our heart. So some moment you feel your heart is racing in your body, and you're okay. If you feel safe to do it, then fall forward, hold your elbows, move side to side, and they seem to the one that everybody love is the goddess pose. So sometimes we'll be joking about it and we do that and it's okay. And I look at them and they know by the time I look at them, I say, what is coming. Everybody started laughing. I'm like, okay, let's show that goddess at us. And then we go. And everybody, it feels like it's almost like, I don't think it's been a day that when like people just go like, everybody just, they feel so empowered, I think, and they just laugh so much when we do that. So it's just I feel like I use so many things, but I think I think goddess pose sometimes when we practice balance, people seems to be to love that, and I talk about the more we trying to control balance, the quicker it's to lose it. But when we trust that balance, when we trust the pose, then it comes more ease, with more ease. So
I like that.
So it's the same thing. The more we're trying to, then it's the more we're trying to control life, the more complicated. But can we trust? Can we trust that process in life? Can we trust and allow it to how to evolve?
Thank you. So we have a question in the chat, and I actually want to open it up to everyone that's on the call, because I actually think we have a lot of people on this call, or at least a few people that do also work in prisons, not necessarily just volunteer in prisons. So I'm opening this question up to everyone. I hope you don't mind, Nechi.
No, not.
The question is it easier for volunteers at a prison to share vulnerability and finding strength compared to prison employees? I suspect that is true, but why? The pressure to maintain the illusion of staff invulnerability is part of the oppression. Coming in with a whammy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think everything that you're saying has deep truth to it. Part of being a facilitator inside as well, it's not to say that we don't have boundaries. We actually have to have very, very good boundaries to go, right? Like, I don't think that this work is for everyone. I think that you have to have a lot of discernment. I think that you have to have a lot of awareness and really, really good boundaries. That's just the nature of the work. That's the nature of where we are going into. And that's the paradox of our work as well. I'm not a correctional officer. I don't know what it's like to work in a prison or to have that be my job. But I imagine that even circumstances beyond a correctional officer's control is that they have systems that they need to work within. And part of that is the separation. Part of that is the safety or the separation from someone who is incarcerated versus someone who is caring for the incarcerated. And I think that this speaks to some of the issues that we have with mass incarceration. You know, we have a retributive or a punishment incarceration system. It's not rooted in rehabilitation or healing. And so I think this conversation is, and the movement that we're wanting to be part of, is shifting this colossal system from a system of punishment. And that does not mean that we are not wanting accountability. We're shifting from punishment to healing. But I'm interested in if anyone else is going to jump into the chat too.
Yeah, no, just to talk about like what you say, yeah, and something I mentioned, you know, when you do this work, yeah, it's very important, you know, to feel, you know, to be in a good place. You have to. I had a lot of therapy, so I have worked on myself really a lot for many years now, and to this day, I still talk to my therapist. You know what I mean? Because the support is very important, you know, but be very grounded is very important. You have to have very strong boundaries. You know what I mean? You love everyone so much, but boundaries and be grounded, and you know, and have boundaries are very important. Yeah. And with the correctional officers, you know, I think I've been very lucky that at MDC I have a great relationship with my you know, with so far with everyone in there. With my correctional officers, the one that runs the program, she's amazing, and I have a great relationship with her. So, you know, and I'm working to get the staff also. I say once again, even for them, if this is once or twice a month, to have surf centering classes for them. So, you know, they had mentioned it, you know, I talked to people from Rikers Island and MTC, and so we are not trained to deal with mental illness. We don't know how to deal when someone is having a hard time. So it will be wonderful, you know, to get it. But I know it changed by state. I know it changed by prison. But so far, yeah, I've been very lucky.
And I think also talking about vulnerability of going in as well, I think there's, again, the balance. If I am feeling really off, I don't want to go inside. I think that you can see so directly your impact when you go into a prison.
Yeah.
Not like walking into other rooms. You do have, it's a ripple effect. There is a wave that's happening. So just speaking to some of like the nuances of being a facilitator inside as well, and just to plug kind of another program that we do, our founder, James Fox, we do a series called Prajna, and it's open to facilitators in our community. Anyone who's doing our foundational training can come, and anyone who's a paying member of our community site can come. And this is definitely where we get into some more of these nuanced conversations, because the work that we do is really complicated.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And something to share with that vulnerability. You know, I share some of my vulnerability. I don't share everything. I share some stuff that I know that might help. but sometimes because I say these things that happen to me, and sometimes of my processing disorder, sometimes when I get nervous, and one of the things trauma is, it's funny sometimes when it come knock my door and I know I have to center myself. A lot of times in class, I would say, okay, something is arising. So let's all, and when I see someone that is getting there, I know they're start like feeling something, I bring everyone together, and I literally almost like I don't stop, but I almost bring a grounding exercise at that moment. So I said, let's all take a moment to find ourselves, to ground ourselves, and to be here, in community, and I think that's something, to be with your students, to read where the class it is and where people it is, and to move with that.
Thank you. Okay, we've got the chat coming, which is great. So a person who does work in the prison is saying, interesting. So if you're feeling too vulnerable as a volunteer, you might opt to not enter the prison that day. But what if it's your job? Not so simple to call off. Maybe the alternative is to pull up the shields and present as invulnerable. Yes. I think that our shields and our masks, however they appear, are safety. Whether you're in a safe situation or not a safe situation, this is a personal theory, but I think so much of our own stuff comes back to, am I safe or am I not safe? And that dictates how we present ourselves. That dictates how we show up. That dictates our relationships, our vulnerability. So I think the answer to so many things, whether we're thinking about it or not, is, am I safe?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got another response. Regina, I've thought about this. I'm a mental health therapist in a prison. See, this is why I wanted to open it up. We've got amazing people in this room as well. Okay, I'll keep going. I see clients individually and also lead a group. In the group, I am more laid back and find myself wanting to be vulnerable in my teaching. However, I have to be careful. Some of the people in the group are also my individual clients. I've thought about what it would be like to be a volunteer instead of a worker and how I might be able to be more open. I do agree that boundaries are very important in this work. Yes. So I'm just thinking of if I want to share the story or not. I think we also have to take into consideration, which I know that all of these people that work in prisons as well and be there full time, is that they are also violent places. And so it's this juxtaposition, right? Because you're wanting to make places safer, places are violent, and then there's also oppression happening that makes places violent. And I can also see how someone working in a prison might feel powerless to help shift the culture in a prison. I think it takes everyone. It takes a top down. Unfortunately, that's where we are currently. But that's also why being part of movements and having conversations with your coworkers, having conversations with bosses, I don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers, but it will take all of us to figure it out. And having conversations like this and coming together and being vulnerable and being truthful in what it is like to also work in a prison full time. And clearly I see everyone that is in this room as well as doing amazing work in prisons. A mental health therapist in a prison, that's invaluable. And we need 100,000 more of you. So also thank you for being here and thank you for your work. And I don't have all the answers.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's almost like to truly make a change. It's like that's we need to start doing this work everywhere. Not only in prisons, but we need to start going, so we start healing each other, you know what I mean? And I think one of the greatest thing in how some of my dreams has shifted is how I can find people within community to do the work that I do. So now I feel for me, it's not only to be this facilitator in this place, I am looking now in someone in that community. They could be a good, a future facilitator, because I believe the community heals within itself. So how beautiful if we can start making this within the people that work in the correctional officers, but with the people within prison. That sometimes I make printouts and I say, hey, if you need to practice, this is what you do, and I go into sometimes I dedicate a day to practice stuff, because I feel we heal together, but we heal in community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think healing communities, building community, knowing your community
Yeah.
is healing on so many levels.
Yeah.
Mm. I love our organization. I love
I
all of
do.
the people that we serve. I love all of the people that come and join us in these thoughtful discussions. And I also love that I usually have more questions than answers when I leave. And then it fuels my curiosity to go and learn more and to dive deeper in. I think I've been part of Prison Yoga Project about 3 years now. And I don't even know if I'm breaking the surface of really understanding this colossal system that we're all a part of, whether
Yeah.
we acknowledge it or not.
I feel like all I do is study. I feel like I do is read and keep reading and trying to keep understanding. But this is a beautiful organization, and I love how it's expanding. I love how it's expanding now to do other things. I mean, because like I mentioned before, we have the prison within these walls, but then we have the prison that we live within our own community, in our neighborhood, and how we can heal that. I'm very excited to see the organization grow and to be part of such an amazing community.
Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for taking the time out of your beautiful, busy life, running around, facilitating all around New York City, Brooklyn. So thank you so much. Thank you for your endless dedication to the work and the people that we serve. Thank you to this community for just being involved and engaging in conversations. There's a few ways you can continue to stay involved. If you haven't already, I highly recommend our foundational training. It's about 24 hours of self-paced work. And then we have between 4 and 5 2-hour workshops where you can come and join. And we do a little bit more embodied work in the workshops, as well as fruitful discussions like this. We host about 2 webinars a month. You can go back and check out all of the recordings. We have some of these webinars up on our podcast as well. Thank you again to this amazing community and to all of the people that we serve. And the one thing that I was thinking about as well is if you work in a prison, ask for yoga and mindfulness programs. We will serve correctional officers as well. We would be more than happy. We would love to expand programming. So I don't know if you have a resource manager, if you have HR, talk about mental health and correctional officers. We have a couple articles posted on our blog, but I think correctional officers, their lifespan is maybe 15 to 20 years less than the rest of the population. They have a very, very high divorce rate. We see how the system impacts everyone that works in the system.
I think there's something to say they die around 60 years old. So shortly after they retire, they die.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's devastating. And then I think that's really part of what we are as an organization and where we are rooted in our mission is healing the harm that this system causes on everyone. And that's why we're here, everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nechi.
Yeah, no, very true to that. And that's why this to know this work, to understand this is so beautiful. So yeah, like you say, I highly recommend it. Even it's just through your own self. Once you start learning what childhood trauma does to the body, and it does through your adult life, you know what I mean? And I think one of the greatest beautiful is like trauma may shape you who you are, but doesn't define who you are. And you have that power and that life within you to overcome and to growth, and then to use that to empower you and to help others, you know what I mean, and help our society.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone on this call. Thank you, Nechi, for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Stay tuned. Stay connected.